Welcome. Welcome to the Noble Steed Games office. Woo. Woo. I sound extremely experienced. Anyway, before I start, I want to say we all gathered here on Gadigal land. Sovereignty was never ceded. I pay my respects to all elders past and present. My name is Anne. I'm Noble Steed Games Marketing Coordinator. Noble Steed Games, oh, I switched the slides, okay, that's great. I meant to do that. Noble Steed Games is an indie studio and games consultancy, so we work with mostly other studios and businesses to make their games, and we make our own games as well. And in the side, we also like doing events like this because it's really fun, despite being really stressful. And we just like being part of the community. And in Sydney, there are a few games events here and there, but we like setting up our own as well and having fun with it. So thanks for coming. Woo. This is our 5th WIP Night now. And WIP Night in general is for indie devs to show off their games, whatever stage they're in, get some feedback, talk about their process, and yeah, get some feedback mainly. So tonight we have a lot of cool games. We have 3 wonderful presenters with us. And what will happen is they'll give a short talk on their games, and then we'll run into question time. And finally, you guys all get to mingle and play their games and have fun. Some housekeeping, toilets over there. I think there are some signs here and there. We have some food. Feel free to help yourselves. We'll refill it, so don't worry. Don't be shy. What else is there? Oh yeah, we will be taking photos and videos tonight, so just holler if you don't want your face in any of them. Just let me know. Yeah, and we'll get started. So the first speaker for tonight, woo, yeah, is Sam from for Anticitizen. So clicker is just that.
Okay, press that one.
Yes,
yeah,
and this is your microphone.
Yeah. I'm not texting my phone or anything. I just have my script. Maybe I am texting. I don't know. Actually, no. Yeah. Here, you can be trusted.
Dude, can I play on the computer?
You can. There's games on it as well, I'm sure. Okay. I'll sit over so you can also look at the screen. I just realized I was blocking the screen. Yay! Woohoo! The whole thing. Wow, we've all got our uniforms on. Yeah. All right. Hello, everyone. Oh, hello, everyone. Yeah. Hi. My name is Sam Lovell, and I'm one of the 3 people that is developing Anticitizen Red, a third-person shooter with slow motion and fast combat. Here's what that looks like in action. It'd be very funny if it didn't load. Now, I know what you're thinking. Whoa, that's sick. This looks fun. And hey, I know that one, and I've already wishlisted it on Steam. But as the last person knows, whoever said that last, thank you, it didn't always start that way. When we first started getting other people to play it, we had an issue, like a really big one. People were not getting past the first level. They were getting confused about stuff I thought was obvious, getting lost in rooms that there was only really one way to go, and then dying at the first enemy and then turning off the game. This is the heart of our issue, sweatiness. Now, sweatiness isn't necessarily, he's sweaty, isn't necessarily difficulty. It looks like it, it probably feels like it, but it's only a part of it. Sweatiness is an issue of cognitive load. Or simply put, how much stuff you have on the screen, how many options you have to complete your goal, and how many mechanics you have at your disposal. How big is the player's obstacle, and how many tools do they have to overcome it? Now, sweatiness isn't necessarily bad. People want options, more mechanics. You want your last levels to be sweaty, but no one's getting to your last level if they can't be bothered getting past the first one. So when I was designing the game, I kept thinking about what I wanted in a game. I wanted choice. The biggest issue is that you are, of course, the best player of your game. Of course you would be. You made it. So you know all the right choices. You know what makes it fun. A first-time player doesn't. So the fix is limit choice at the start. Slow your roll. Don't let your players shoot themselves in the foot because it's your fault you gave them the gun. Is there a hard difficulty mode? Lock it. A really easy difficulty mode? Lock that too. An arena mode? Lock it. Maps too sprawling? Lock them. Overly complicated mechanics? Slow it down. Enemies with harder abilities? Yeah, save them for later. With locking things until later, we also fixed a massive issue with our tutorial. Before, it talked a lot. No one wants to open a game just so you can spend 15 minutes getting talked to about stuff you don't understand yet, unless Hideo Kojima's name's on it. Locking stuff lets us only give out pertinent information. Our tutorial went from a solid 15 minutes to about 3 minutes. Death Stranding could never. I'm sorry, Death Stranding. Now, the idea of locking something sounds terrible to players. It sounds like you're limiting the way that they can play until you, the creator, deem it appropriate. And yeah, you are doing that. But the issue isn't one of mechanics, it's one of framing. It's not that things are locked, it's now that you can unlock things for playing well. That arena mode that we had that everyone thought was really hard, yeah, it's still hard, but you have to unlock it by getting high scores. The hardest difficulty, you have to earn it. You even have to earn the easiest difficulty now. People love unlocking stuff. It feels good even though we are essentially limiting players. So now we have a solution to sweatiness. How do you know when you need to use it? Testing. Now you can really only test a new player experience once per person, and you're eventually going to run out of friends, especially if you're a game dev. Which is why events like this one are perfect. Generally, you want someone who you can gather is okay at the genre you're doing. If you give it to people who have no interest in the genre and don't enjoy it, you're going to stand away all the interesting elements you have in the pursuit of mass appeal. If you assemble a crack squad of locked-in 90-cranking experts, you're going to alienate people who might be interested but just don't have the time to dedicate the cognitive load you presented them with. It's a fine balance, and one that the pros haven't nailed yet. But at a certain point, you will strike the balance where you can just drip feed the tools to your players without restricting or overloading them. If you have issues similar to what we've had and nothing else seems to be working, it might be an issue of sweatiness. It might be time to lock stuff for later. Thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you. Yeah. I think this is yours.
Yep. The clicker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh no, I took the.
It's been.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Rest in peace. Thanks, Sam. That was so cool. As I mentioned, we'll be leaving questions to the very end from like everyone's talks, so we can have like a fun discussion and you guys can give some feedback, ask crazy questions. So next up we have David with Blink. Here you go. That's your little thing.
Can I work that?
Yeah, you can just hold it in.
Okay. And this one too.
That one's your clicky thing.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Hi, my name is David Kilford. I'm a mostly solo game developer. I worked out of Brisbane for 8 years. I'm kind of recently back to Sydney. So slate of some stuff I've worked on over the past 10 years. So I'm showing off this game called Blink over there. But most of the talk is going to be about this game here, Super Dropland, that I worked on, and a technique called replays, where I record what people does. So replays is essentially you're capturing footage or data about what people are doing inside your game so you can play it back later. And it's really useful to supplement it with doing playtesting for your game. So that's what the talk's going to be about. So it's kind of a good way to supplement it with over-the-shoulder playtesting, where you sit over someone's shoulder and watch what they're doing and recording what they're doing. It has some advantages and disadvantages to it. The main thing that you get is when you're doing over-the-shoulder playtesting like this, it's obviously a very skewed sample size. You're playing with other game developers, mostly, or friends and family. You're not playing with people in like Brazil, for example. English might not be their first language. Also, remote playtesting is another really good way of doing playtesting, but you get some really weird data, like people don't often give you a correct recount of what happens in the game. So if you just have a replay of what they're doing, you can double check. So if it gets stuck or if there's a bug, you can just replay it and see what happens. The main downside, though, is there's a fair amount of technical debt when you do it. So you have to make sure that the replays don't break between versions, and also you have to make sure that your server can handle a lot of replays if your game is successful. So this is a tutorial level I made for Super Dropland that I thought was going to be really simple. So it's a 2-button platformer game where you roll left and right, and you start off, you see some spikes to the left, so you go, okay, into head right, and then avoid the spikes, pick up all the coins, and pass through. So I thought this was going to be pretty easy. Every single playtest I did in this worked flawlessly. Everyone knew what to do. But when I put it live, this is actually what happened. So this is about 100 people playing the game at the same time. You can see people rolling over and over into spikes there. You can see people rolling into spikes there. You can see people not collecting the final star. So I did maybe like 30 playtests with friends and family, and nothing like this ever happened. But when I put it live out there, this is what actually happens. And this is why recording this stuff is so useful, because you can actually find these problems and then fix them before a large amount of people sees them. So this is what I did. So the GIF didn't start properly, but when the level starts and now pans to the objective, so you see it pan to the star on the right. And then I also replaced all the spikes with blocks, so if the player rolls into it, they don't immediately die. That also reduced anxiety in the match, so you can see it pans to the star. Then if the player tries to roll into what were the spikes before, it just stops them. And then I added a little ghost showing the player that they can move through that platform and then up. And this fixed so many issues with the game. So after doing that, the amount of people that played a second run of the game doubled. And the amount of people that played more than 10 runs of the game more than doubled. It was like 250% of people had played more. So this is something that if you just do playtesting, you won't always catch all these issues, but if you add like little replays to it, you can capture them and watch them, and you can actually test to make sure that you've fixed these issues as well. And Super Dropland ended up becoming a game of the day and got about 3 million downloads. So just some tips if you do this. I like assigning a random name to each of the players so you can watch them between each level. Otherwise you see like a random like number or something like that, which doesn't really, you don't have any emotional attachment to them, but if you watch the same person play through each game, you can see, oh, this is, far-flung polar bear, and you can watch what they do. You can follow them between each level as well. You can sort of build like a story of what they're doing, and you can also track like, I want to see only replays of people who dropped out in the first session of the game. So you can look through those people and see, what went wrong when they were playing it and how you can fix that. I also recommend from a technical side keeping the replay format really simple. It just means that it won't break as much between each version. And also, for privacy reasons, you can't track the person's IP address or any personal information. IP address is the one that catches most people out because that can be considered personally identifiable. So if you just don't track that, then you should be good. Cool. I'm also showing off another game called Blink, which didn't play. There you go. I think it just has like a short amount of nothing at the start. I think it is.
Is it a stealth game?
Here we go. Okay, it came in. So the main mechanic in this game is you have to manually close your eyes to progress in the game. So it's very loud. So if anyone wants a spooky experience after this, then yeah, come check me out over there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Looks very spooky. Very keen to try it out. It's just in the middle over there. Next up, we do have, hello, Blink. Next up, we have Josh with Cybervoid. So yes, Here you go. Just press that one.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh. I like making games as a hobby. So what this is it's actually more of an experiment rather than a game, and it's still halfway being done. But what I'm trying to do is work on aspects of narrative design within the game. So firstly, it's interesting that I'm going last because I wanted to really talk about endings. So I'm not sure who's played the Stanley Parable, but oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite, and it actually is. I hope your friends find this concerning. So if you haven't played the Stanley Parable, what happens is that the player can choose to stand in a broom closet for several minutes while the narrator mocks them, but yet it can still be considered an ending based on whether the player actually liked standing in the broom closet and that was their whole experience. So what's a good ending for a narrative for you? So I kind of considered what narratives might be like in other media, so with films, but I have picked Memento, Tenet, and Primer, if anyone's interested. But I mean, in general, with narratives, you do get start and ends, which are reasonably finite. With Choose Your Own Adventure books, you might get some branching in the narratives saying like, oh, based on your decisions, this is the ending that you're going to get. And you might see that with video games as well. And then, yeah, in certain games, you don't get a real ending, you only get new content via version updates. Or, if you're lucky, your primary ending could give you a New Game Plus, right? Everyone loves New Game Plus. And only if you've done the New Game Plus really well, then you're going to get the true ending, which means that you're going to have to play the game many times and get those Steam hours, right up. Or you might have to go and purchase a DLC for a specific ending for your character if you really like that too. So I'm just thinking about like, okay, so these are the ways that people are dealing with narrative. What are some ways that I can kind of invent on that formula? So hypothetically, what if that you could have multiple beginnings and then player decisions and multiple valid endings? Can that work? And if it could work, is it worth doing? So, hang on, gotta go back. All right, so I saw that you could kind of get this happening in board games. So in Secret Mission Risk, you get a mission, and if you complete that, you win. But everyone gets a different mission. And every time you play the game, you'll be getting a different mission. So your starting is different. Ticket to Ride, you can choose from a set of missions based on your difficulty. So that's scaling difficulty with you. And also, your journey through the game is going to be different. And Settlers of Catan, so that's completely up to you. What are your objectives going to be? How do you want to start the game? But these are board games, so people could say, well, board games don't really have narrative structure. I don't know if anyone's played The Sims and know what happens there. That's a tragic story that's happening right there. They could not find the railing to exit the pool. Well, neither do sandbox games like The Sims, and yet you get emergent narratives from them. So does this only work for sandbox games? Can we also apply this to adventure games as well? So anyway, the experiment, yeah, I actually started off the game with a kind of a setting, and then I kind of thought, oh, why don't I experiment with the narratives? So what's Cybervoid about? The thematic ideas, it's a kind of mixture of colonial organisms. So if you don't know, the blue bottle is a siphonophore, which is, it's made up of lots of tiny little organisms acting as a big organism. So I could say, what about us as a colony as well? Urban environment as cells. Buildings have ventilation, electricity. You've got the internet now as a nervous system, plumbing. Is that similar to a cell? And conscious thought, which is like, how do you know you are consciously thinking right now? Or are you just operating on autopilot? And so putting that all together, thinking, well, what is a collective consciousness of a city? And so within Cybervoid, you are a nameless protagonist who's exploring the ruins of what's an experiment to create a collective consciousness within a city. It will be also interesting to think, as a community, what is your goal as a collective consciousness if it was to exist? Anyway, so this is how the game starts. Yes, it is a lot of text, and it is point and click and a lot of mouse as well. So if it's not your cup of tea, I'm really sorry, but that's the way I've decided to go. So what you see there, what I wanted to try out, is a similar concept to the idea of not thinking about purple elephants, in that if I give you the suggestion, you have to choose how are you going to react based on your personality. Are you okay? You like thinking about purple elephants? Or are you going to say, that's ridiculous, why should I have to fall into your thought trap? I am going to be a free thinker. And so as the player, how would you respond? So if you're given the mission to save the city, will your response be, yeah, of course, or I'm going to wreck it, or maybe I won't, or maybe I will, up to me. So that's what I wanted the player to kind of think about as they start the game, that what their actions are going to be based on is their own response to external stimuli. The next thing is I wanted to add a little bit of time pressure as well. So there is a kind of a time element to the game where the player has to decide whether they are going to shoot things or they're not going to shoot things and try to do stealth. So that's kind of in the middle of the game as well, where I've tried to break it into story acts enforced by security levels. So they do need like midterm objectives. Then there are chosen objectives for them to do. So are they going to repair or destroy parts of the city? And then interactions with the world independent. So kind of deciding where within the city they want to spend their time exploring, because every single day in the game does eventually count in the long run, and the energy you expend during that. So that's what I've got here as the checkpoints and things like that. Yeah, and lastly, just thinking about like how to end sections. And so this is that's the brief ending of what's the demo for spoilers. Yeah, so I'd like to finish on with the idea of maybe with narratives we don't need endings, and so you don't get bad endings, but all you get is consequences, which is what I really enjoy with board games, is that you've made the choice when you played a board game. And I'd like to see that expressed in the story as well. So maybe you can have multiple story conclusions based on how the player impacted the game's timeline. So the game is tracking the days past and what the player did. And while you can't see it in the demo, they will eventually get the consequences based on the collective actions over the many days which they've spent exploring the city. One other thing is, I don't know also if anyone's played Arkham Horror, but I took a bit of inspiration from that. Basically, a player can choose to make the game hard by ignoring the things that would make them easy. And so that's what I'm trying to work into the game as well for narrative. Yeah, and that's it.